On August the 28th, 1944, Task Force 38, 14 aircraft carriers protected by battleships, cruisers and destroyers, set sail from Eniwetok in the Marshall Islands and headed for the Philippines. Under the command of Admiral William F. Halsey, Task Force 38's mission was to attack Japanese air power on the islands, weakening the opposition in advance of America's next move. General MacArthur's plan to liberate all the Philippines, even though it was backed by President Roosevelt, had not yet been accepted by the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But whatever the next campaign, bases would be needed in the southern Philippines. Plans to invade at least some of the islands had already been laid. The American intention was to seize the islands of Ulithi and Yap, the Palau Islands, Morotai, and the Talaud Islands. These could be used as staging posts for an invasion of Mindanao, the southernmost of the Philippines. After the Japanese had been driven from Mindanao, Leyte would be invaded. However, there was still a question about what would come next. The possibilities were Luzon and the complete clearance of the Philippines, or the bypassing of Luzon in favor of a leap to Formosa. On the 13th of September, Admiral Halsey's flyers flew 1,200 sorties against targets in the Philippines, and a similar number the following day. Almost 500 Japanese aircraft were destroyed, two-thirds of them on the ground, for only 9 American losses. The carrier planes had also sunk 59 ships, with as many again counted as possible sinkings. It seemed to Halsey that the strength of the Japanese defense on the Philippines had been seriously overestimated, as had the Japanese will to fight. In particular, it looked as though the island of Leyte was especially weak. Wasting no time, Halsey sent a message back to headquarters reporting that the Philippines were barely defended and suggesting an invasion of Leyte as soon as possible. Even as Halsey's message was being received at Pearl Harbor, in the Canadian city of Quebec, President Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister, and their senior commanders were meeting at the Octagon Conference. In the middle of the meeting, a message was received from Nimitz at Pearl Harbor, telling of Halsey's suggestion that landings be made at Leyte. By the end of the day, the Joint Chiefs had issued orders for an invasion of Leyte to be mounted on October the 20th, 1944. The operation would be codenamed King II. Admiral Halsey's report completely changed the American timetable for the campaign in the southern Philippines. The Palau Islands, Morotai and Ulithi would still be taken. But Yap, the Talaud Islands and Mindanao would be bypassed in favor of an early landing on Leyte. After that would come the invasion of Luzon that MacArthur had always wanted. The landings on Leyte would take place at Leyte Gulf, an area of good beaches, and one of the few anchorages big enough to hold and protect the invasion flotilla of 7th Fleet. As well as transporting the assault troops of 6th Army, 7th Fleet would have the task of protecting and supporting the landings. Destroyers and patrol craft would guard against Japanese submarines. Battleships and cruisers would use their heavy guns to bombard the enemy on shore. Escort carriers would give fighter cover to the troops and bomb Japanese positions. While 7th Fleet carried out the landings at Leyte Gulf, to the west and north, Task Force 38, the strike component of 3rd Fleet, would be deployed to support the invasion force. Its carriers would attack Japanese air bases all over the region and deal with any major Japanese naval threat that might appear. However, most American commanders doubted that the Japanese Navy would launch any large-scale operations against the Leyte landings. By the summer of 1944, the strategic situation for Japan was growing more and more dangerous as each day passed. In aircraft carriers, the Japanese Navy was desperately weak, while the timing of the various American attacks in the Pacific had kept Imperial forces off balance. Twice, the traditional Japanese Navy doctrine of seeking out the decisive battle had been followed to the letter, and twice, at Midway and in the Philippine Sea, it had failed to deliver an American defeat. With the perimeter of the Empire being pushed back step by step, and with ships, trained men and resources of all kinds in ever shorter supply, the choice for Japanese planners was a stark one. Either accept a slow and inevitable defeat, or try once more for the decisive battle that would stop the Americans in their tracks and perhaps open the door to an honorable peace. To win such a victory, the Imperial High Command would have to concentrate all its available forces for one massive counterblow. With the American capture of the Marianas and New Guinea, only the screen of islands from the Japanese homelands through the Ryukyus, Formosa and the Philippines protected the flow of oil and other strategic supplies which were the lifeblood of the Japanese war effort. In the new Japanese strategy, the southwestern area, the main source of Japan's raw materials, was to be heavily fortified. So was the island chain linking the area to the Japanese homeland. Most Army and Navy aircraft would be deployed along the chain. At the same time, the Japanese Army would move troops from Manchuria and, with the Navy, create amphibious forces which could be sent to any area under attack. Most of the Japanese surface fleet was stationed in the southwest of Singapore. However, the aircraft carriers had to be based in Japan to reform their air groups. It was hoped that in November, the carriers could join the rest of the fleet near Singapore, creating a powerful combined force. The Japanese defense relied on 4 operational plans called SHO.